I'd like everyone to think. Okay? Open your minds and open your hearts and imagine a world without vaccines. When natural calamities happen, we're often caught unaware, vulnerable, afraid. In April of this year, we experienced a 6.1 magnitude earthquake. And I guess it's a fact when I say that it left us all literally and figuratively shooked. The casualties from that earthquake, though, aren't no joke. 18 dead, 3 missing, 256 people injured. In the blink of an eye, that calamity, that natural disaster, it all became real. It happened to us. Yet if you think about it, it's really just a drop in the bucket compared to some of the worst natural calamities we've encountered in the 21st century. November 2013, Super Typhoon Yolanda. Anyone here remembers that? Super Typhoon Yolanda, the strongest natural disaster ever to hit the Philippines. It claimed more than 10,000 lives from one island alone. And in fact, it's recorded as one of the strongest tropical cyclones ever. Staggering, isn't it? But what about plagues? What about diseases? What if we take a look about the calamities and the number of casualties that these vaccine-preventable diseases caused way back in the pre-vaccine era? In the mid-20th century, polio. I'm sure you've all heard about polio recently. Right? During the mid-20th century, it caused worldwide, massive, large-scale outbreaks. 350,000 cases of polio yearly. 1 in 200 out of those cases will result in irreversible paralysis. 5 to 10% of those will die when their breathing muscles become immobilized. In the pre-vaccine era, we'd see a lot of these diseases. Diphtheria, 200,000 cases of diphtheria yearly. 15,000 lives lost to diphtheria on an annual basis. Mumps, 186,000 cases of mumps year on year. 40 deaths because of mumps year on year. The swine flu, something that we've probably heard of, about H1N1. Back in 2009 and 2010, the World Health Organization declared it as a worldwide pandemic. 200,000 people died because of the swine flu. And it was only until September 2010 that it was put under control when the FDA finally released the vaccine against H1N1. Measles, again, something that we've heard of this year. You're hearing a lot of these diseases this year, aren't we? Measles, before the pre-vaccine era, way back before the 60s, would claim lives in the millions. Every 2 to 3 years, there would be massive, large-scale outbreaks, epidemics of measles. 2.6 million children die of measles yearly. That's more lives lost than some of the worst natural disasters we've encountered in the 21st century. More lives lost than Hurricane Katrina, the earthquake in Haiti, Super Typhoon Yolanda, all combined. Seeing these staggering statistics, I just have one question for you. What if we lived in a world without vaccines? 2019 without vaccines, what would that world be like? Could you tell me what would happen? Can you, as parents, imagine that world without vaccines? Definitely a lot of sicknesses will just be there. They'll all be lurking outside your door, waiting to pounce on your family, on your children. In a world without vaccines, these dreaded diseases, polio, diphtheria, pertussis, mumps, measles, they'd all make a comeback and they'd claim more lives year on year than some of the worst natural disasters combined. So let's look at the state of the nation of the Philippines right now. Let's take a look at polio. Let's take a look at measles. It's 2019, but in 1955, the first vaccine for polio was released. And it took us almost 50 years to be able to declare the Philippines as polio-free. Yet now, 2019, we are again under the threat of this very deadly and very real disease. And that's really because of poor sanitation and the declining vaccination rates in our country. Let's take a look at measles. February, again in 2019, the Department of Health issued a warning that measles was an epidemic during that time frame. This year alone, we saw 200,000 cases of measles. 63% of those cases were unvaccinated. And what happened? That claimed the lives of more than 200 children just this year. The WHO reports that globally, the number of measles cases has tripled since last year. And some diseases that you've probably never even heard about, they're all making a comeback in our lifetime, in this era, thanks to the declining vaccination rates. So it's happened before. You think that maybe it's just happening to third world countries, but no, it's happened to other countries. First world countries. It happened to Japan. It's happened to Australia. It's happened to Sweden. Let's take a look at Japan, for example. In 1974, they had an 80% vaccination rate against pertussis. It's also known as your whooping cough. It's pretty good. But what happened? People started to forget about the disease because they don't see it as often. So vaccination rates started to go down year on year. And in just the span of 5 years, that vaccination rate from 80% went all the way down to 10%. You can just imagine what would happen next. From less than 400 cases of pertussis on an annual basis, it ballooned all the way up to 13,000 cases in just 1 year. And it claimed the lives of 41 children. It was only until that vaccination, the routine vaccination against pertussis, that was the only time that they were again able to control that dreaded disease. So at what point do we really just say that we've had enough? That we just really start to fight back against these diseases? When will we stop allowing ourselves, our community, our family, our children from being bullied by all these vicious microbes? Do we just wait in fear and uncertainty, just hide under a rock, lock ourselves in a safe for all eternity, just forever locked in this perpetual battle against diseases that we thought we've eliminated decades ago? Or, here's an idea. What if we take a stand? What if we take a stand by becoming vaccine advocates, responsible citizens, responsible parents that really just share the importance about the information of vaccination? What can we do, really, to be able to spread the safety and the importance of vaccination and about the diseases that they prevent? What can we do to be able to finally eradicate these infectious diseases? And one answer to that is really just understanding and spreading the information about what we call herd immunity. So, herd immunity, I don't know if you've heard about this. Anyone heard about herd immunity? Yes, very good. All right, so herd immunity is also known as your community immunity. And this happens when you have a significant proportion of your population that becomes immunized against a particular disease. Thereby, it protects those who are not immunized, right? So, let's say I have one person here who is not immunized. He's practically shielded by this entire cluster of people that are immunized. And there is a less chance of this person who has not been immunized to come in contact to someone who actually has the disease. The more number of people that you get on board to herd immunity, then the less chance that your virulent organisms, these dreaded diseases, will be able to circulate throughout your community. So, what or who will benefit from the effects of this herd immunity? So there's a small cluster of your population that really needs to benefit from herd immunity. So number one, children. Children who have not yet been vaccinated against that particular disease. Number two, people who are immunocompromised, that they cannot receive the vaccine. Number 3, our elderly people. Why? Because they're not really able to mount a good response or a good immune response against these vaccines. And number 4, for one reason or another, people who do not have access to vaccines. So by promoting herd immunity, all these diseases, all these infectious microorganisms can finally be eradicated. But here's a catch. For it to work, for herd immunity to be able to work, we need to get practically everyone on board. We need a good number of people to be able to be immunized against that particular disease. And let's take measles as an example. For herd immunity to work against measles, a very virulent organism, we need about 95% vaccine coverage in our community. And what that means basically is, if I have 100 people in my community, 95 of them need to be vaccinated against measles for your herd immunity to actually work. So let's look at other reasons why we need to get vaccinated aside from herd immunity. We know, and this is a fact, that vaccines save lives and they stop the spread of infectious diseases. We know that number 1, vaccines work. This is irrefutable evidence. They work really well, 90 to 99% effective in trying to stop diseases. They've been doing so for 50 years, and they've saved millions of lives since then. Number 2, we know that vaccines, they're safe, right? They're safe. There's a lot of work, a lot of studies, a lot of testing goes on before these vaccines are even made public. And number 3, vaccines are necessary. They can mean the difference between life and death. And as pediatricians, we encourage all children to be able to receive the appropriate vaccinations with appropriate doses. Prevention really is the key to be able to stop the spread of these infectious diseases. And lastly, I'd like you to realize that even if a person who is vaccinated does get the disease will tend to be much, much milder compared to someone who has never received the vaccination. So what can you guys do? What are the roles of our moms? What are the roles of our parents? Well, first thing that you should really do is just be informed. Talk to your doctor about the benefits of vaccinations, about what vaccines that he or she can give you to protect you and your family. Then once you have that information, you take it and then you share it with your community. Share what you know with others and about the importance of getting these vaccines. And of course, know the difference between your vaccine myths and your vaccine facts. And our next speaker will be able to shed some more light on that. So how can you be a vaccine advocate? Well, the first thing that you should really do is just really listen. Listen to what our other people are talking about. Listen about their concerns. Are they concerned about maybe the safety, maybe the efficacy of your vaccine? Are they concerned about the side effects? Just really listen and take it all in. Then once they've aired out their concerns, then start to share your own knowledge about the vaccines. Give them reputable sources so that they be able to make their own research about the importance of vaccination. Share your own personal story about vaccines and the diseases that they prevent. And lastly, in the offshoot that you might come in contact with someone who is anti-vaxxer, then as hard as it may be, do not pass any judgment on them, right? Listen to them, know what their concerns are, and then maybe respond to them and be ready to answer any other queries that they might have about vaccination. Okay? So I encourage everyone, right? Don't wait for these infectious diseases to just grab hold and take control of your family. It's time to make a stand for vaccine advocacy. Getting vaccinated is your responsibility. Responsibility to yourself, responsibility to your family, it's a responsibility to your community and to all of mankind. So for today, I'd like to encourage everyone, let's all start making a difference. Today is the day that you can be a vaccine advocate. Thank you very much and have a good afternoon.